Reddit's most epic revenge stories, a curated collection. Part 3.
My dad left a passive-aggressive note. I drew a dong on the note. He hasn't spoken to me for 2 weeks. Used to feel bad, but I'm over it. Passive-aggressiveness beaten with passive-aggressiveness. Great. When I was little, my friends kept pointing at the little girl on the box of the board game Operation and saying it looks like me. So I pointed at the big fat guy and said, "That's your mom," and didn't realize she was behind me. Okay, so I got a prank call. Dude abusing me and constantly ringing me, so I set up a fake account on a dating website with pics of a cute girl and put his number in the profile description. Should have put it in the M4M personal section of the classifieds. Some girl hit my car in a hit and run. There was a witness to the crime, so the police were able to track her down. When I was asked if I wanted to press charges, I went for it. Turns out she had no license or insurance. She kept trying to fight the charges but wound up getting sued by my insurance, having to pay me restitution via the court system, and 4 separate charges between all her crimes, all of which included a decent fine. She was some 18-year-old single mom. I felt super bad by the end of it. 2 days ago, actually, in my football I know, game, this one clumsy defender kept catching my ankles seconds after I would pass the ball away. So one play he was clearing the ball and I just wanted to lay the kid out. As he was on his plant foot swinging, I hit him with my shoulder hard, and as he was falling he grabbed me and took me down with him. I landed on his arm and it snapped like a twig between the wrist and the elbow. I feel awful. Clumsy defender. Unless he was genuinely apologizing after each foul, I would assume it was intentional. As he was falling he grabbed me and took me down with him. B-move. Caused his own arm to break. When I was in 9th grade, a kid ruthlessly bullied me for a few months. I had gotten sick of it and devised a plan for revenge. Every Wednesday we would get to sit outside for quiet reading time, and this kid would always go back inside for a pee. I had left and waited in the bathroom for him, peeking under the stall for his shoes to appear. He came in the bathroom, took his pee, then played on his Game Boy for the rest of reading time. The bell rang and he walked out to the crowded stairwell still looking down at his Game Boy. I bumped into him. He fell face first down the stairs, knocked out 4 front teeth. Everyone on the stairs assumed he fell because he was playing his Game Boy. I feel pretty bad about it. My neighbors slashed my tires and I'm about to sign them up for every mailing list I can think of. What are small legal ways you have gotten back at someone that has wronged you? My dad ran a concrete company a while back. They had an issue over a driveway that they did for a company that was putting up a premier neighborhood. Anyways, the company was refusing to pay, so my dad parked his crappy old work truck in front of their show homes with huge sign in it saying XXXXXXX concrete is suing XXXXX homes over shady business practices. They settled out of court the next day. If you really wanted to get back at them, sign them up for the local chapter of the Jehovah's Witnesses. My brother did this to me. It was horrible. Put a shortcut to shut down eggs in their startup folder. My new butthole neighbors cut some bushes that were planted on their side of the fence off at the top of the fence, leaving a bunch of excess plant matter to die hanging over on my side. I retaliated by severely trimming back all of my trees that were providing shade to their AC units and windows as to heat up their house and cost them money. It'll cost them hundreds over a few years, maybe. Put glitter in their shampoo. I don't care how, just find a way. In their cars' air vents. I hated my apartment neighbor, so I applied him to every online school in America and a few Texas tourism agencies. This is my hack. I checked out what a grad school loan would be through Watchavia once, and they must have contracts with a bunch of online universities because I was hassled by them for about 4 months. The best thing you can do is use the legal method. Your tires were fine before they impounded it. After it was impounded, they were slashed. File a police report. Let your insurance know. At the very least, you can also contact a lawyer if you wish to either sue the towing company or the neighbors. Do not confront them yourself, since it will probably only make them angrier. If you want to go even more legal on them, there may be some city ordinance that prevents them from building a fence like that. Contact your local zoning commission. Make a complaint. If you have a lot of time and energy, you could even join the zoning board to get it taken down. Depending on where you are in law, this may be a fairly easy thing to do. Legal revenge is the best revenge. I should add, as always, this is not legal advice, and I am not a lawyer. Seriously, contact a real lawyer if you've got a problem. My best guess on the toll lot issue is that they are, to some degree, responsible for the cars they tow, and that they would have a hard time convincing a judge or a mediator that the slashed tires aren't their problem at all. We once shared a floor in a housing project with a young man who forever endeavored to upset and unsettle anyone and everyone within earshot of his apartment. From screaming matches with his dealer to starting small fires in the hallway, barely a night went by that we didn't see, smell or somehow suffer his presence in the building. After an evening which ended with a rage-addled guest of his kicking on every door on the floor before defecating massively in the stairwell, the ladies living to our left decided to do their best to match his superlative dowry, by way of a series of small advertisements posted in the pubs, clubs and pool halls of our town listing his phone number and home address. They ensured a steady stream of human traffic harassing him for months. As I later learned, they'd snipped a snap of a comely lass from the local newspaper, covered her eyes and listed charges for adult services well below market prices. The result was an incessant stream of calls and visitors seeking bargain BJs and discount dong teasing after a long evening of drinking. Many of them understandably truculent on discovering that any dong pleasing that day would have to be self-inflicted. Not only was it a fair few months before the flow of disappointed punters dried up, but the inclusion of his address led to a visit by a contingent of coppers who came looking for H but found a stash instead. That young man went away for a while after that, and when he came back he was as good as gold. TLDR. Noisy, no good neighbor advertised as escort, rumbled by the fuzz for drugs. Truck, lentric hilmed, adjective, eager or quick to argue or fight, aggressively defiant. If they don't have a kid, make sure you sign them up for baby websites. That crap never ends. Someone did this to me a couple of years ago and I still get formula samples in the mail. You'd think they'd look at when the name was signed up and think, hey, the kid's 5 years old now. Get yourself a rotisserie chicken from your local grocery store. Have a nice chicken dinner. Maybe invite a girl over. Have a nice bottle of wine and watch a movie. But keep the bones and the cuts of meat. Then get yourself a nicely sized glass jar. Make sure it's a mason jar, so it's airtight. Next, put the bones and meat in the jar, and add milk, maybe an egg for good measure. Voila, your weapon. Now place this near an air intake in their home, preferably in a vent if you can. Dryer vent will work fine, and probably best. The deal is, this milk and chicken will rot in the jar. Crap gets rank as your crazy Uncle Ed's breath after drinking the end of a jar of pickles on garlic dish night. As it rots, gas builds up in the jar. Give it a month or so, and this gas gets built up to the point that it shatters the jar. Guess what? Your neighbors have got the most disgusting fluid known to man dripping into their home. The smell won't go away for weeks. It will be so bad they will probably leave. This, gentlemen, is the chicken dairy bomb. About 9 years ago, someone convinced our elderly office manager to get lightning insurance billed to each of our 6 business lines at $9.95 a month. They totally strong-armed her into doing it, too. From what she said, I called the company's 800 number at 6 PM to complain, but it was after hours and all they had was a recording that they were closed. I did, however, notice that the recording repeated forever instead of playing once and hanging up. I took all 6 voice lines, 2 fax lines, and 4 cell phones and called the 800 number and let the line sit on hold every night for a week, while racking up an absolute fortune for the company on their toll-free line. Frick those guys. Good luck with that. Considering they already slashed your tires, I'm sure confronting them will go very well. Yeah, it might not go so well. Do they have a nice lawn? Every once in a while fill a water balloon with water and a ton of bleach. Toss it over the fence onto the lawn. Dead spot. That's really evil, especially in my neighborhood where the hoe will call you and fine you if your lawn isn't nice looking. I know because my mom used to over fertilize her lawn and get yellow dead spots and they would harass her about it. Confronting them directly sounds like a recipe for disaster. However, letting the Democratic or Republican National Committee, or ideally both, know that they might be interested in more information. Put their phone number on Craigslist somewhere under one of the personals. Expect many text messages, voicemails, and calls throughout the night. Dinkelberg. One time an ex-friend borrowed $500. Of course he doesn't pay me. Welches. Avoids calls, emails, etc. So this guy always parked on the street, lived in a nice part of town. So in the cold winters after my buddies and I left the bar, being the DD, I'd take everyone for food. Since most of the guys needed to take a pee, I'd usually take a pit stop at the Welsh's house and my mates would urinate all over his car. It'd freeze all over his car. Also, since I didn't think that was enough punishment, we rented the exact same model and color vehicle as the Welsher, put his plates on the rental and would deliberately drive through intersections with red light cameras and get him ticketed. Afterwards we'd put his plate back on. That was amazing. We were careful and did this at like 3 AM, but he must have got around $3,000 in traffic violations. Felt great. I'm not sure if you're a complete butthole or a genius. If they are people that keep a neat and pristine lawn, you could always throw down the thistle seed that the birds eat. You'll be feeding the birds and ruining their lawn with weeds at the same time. I just sprinkle powdered milk all over their yard. When the sprinklers turn on making milk and then by midday you have curdled milk. You know, you can make the impound lot pay for the tires. If they say they came in that way on their report, your neighbors are suspects for the vandalism and the police can sort it out. Also, towing and labor to an impound lot would require that you were blocking a fire hydrant or handicapped space. No reputable towing company can legally tow you for parking on a street or in a labeled parking spot, like Sea Commander apartment numbered spots, until it has been occupied for 96 hours by you. I don't know if driveways are part of the city code for illegal parking, and likely they are considered fire lanes or something stupid like that. But a lot of times businesses that say they will tow at owner's expense actually end up having to pay the fees themselves, and it can only be moved to another spot, not impounded. Maybe some rookie cop took the call and impounded it as a rookie mistake. P.S. My source for the towing laws is a towing company in California who were unable to tow and butthole who parked in my spot at my apartment for 2 days. They showed me the state laws regarding what can and can't be towed. This was about 8 months ago. Frick legal. These people clearly don't care about the goddamned law if they slashed your fricking tires. Gorilla glue their doors shut. You evil son of a bee. Slightly different, but in college when we got the hundreds of credit card applications in the mail, we would fill the prepaid envelopes with rocks and send them back. The post office would charge them for the extra weight. One time we taped one to a cinder block. The mailman told us technically he wasn't supposed to take it, but did anyway because he thought it was funny. Screw legal. Buy multiple chains and a couple padlocks, and in the middle of the night when no one can see you, put all the chains and locks on their gate so that it cannot be opened without quite a bit of effort. But wear gloves, just in case, and put the lock on the outside of the fence. Wrap the chain so tight the gate can't move. Get the best, strongest chain you can possibly find. Love this idea. Vigilante justice is 100 times more effective than petty legal routes. Source: I'm the goddamn Batman. You can buy a valve stem remover from an AutoZone. $3 or $4, I think, and with that, remove the valve stems from their tires, flattening them in seconds. Then watch as they try to air their tires, but to no avail. You're gonna go to a hardware store and buy nails that are long enough to puncture the wall of the tire. Next, sneak over at night and wedge one nail at an angle behind each tire of their car. Wake up extra early the next morning, make an amazing breakfast and be patient. When they back the car out of the driveway to leave for work, your ears will be filled with the angelic melody of hissing air and furious profanities. Enjoy your breakfast, newly seasoned with the tears of your enemies. Oh, and if you're really dedicated, let the air out of the tires first, then use Fix-A-Flat to refill them. It's illegal in CA for any tire place to repair a tire that's had Fix-A-Flat used in it. My dad is a Reagan-era Republican and we got in a little tiff a few months back. I donated to the Democratic Party using my parents' address and house phone number. What followed was non-stop Democratic Initiative phone calls and mail. My permanent residence this election season was his addy. Cat facts. That is all. A hit had decided to frick with my computer as a prank. In return, I posted an ad on Craigslist for a birthday party clown. I said I was a poor college student that needed extra cash. I did it for my Lily brother and his friends' parties. Can do magic and balloon animals. $10 HR. No minimum. Then I put his cell number. Priceless. If you Google /tires Sunset Hollywood, this thread is right near the top of the charts. Which means you shouldn't do anything that will start a feud unless you're sure they don't know how to Google. You've just admitted to committing identity theft. So if your neighbors have friends on the police force, you could end up with cops tracking you down from your Reddit account. Not to mention a civil case if they're angry and rich enough. And heck, you don't even know for sure it was your neighbors. It could have been the buttholes who towed your car. And you already met the towing people. So you know those guys are buttholes. I'm just guessing at that. Because they always are. In a small town you might find a nice mechanic running a truck on the side. But in bigger cities the impound industry is full of scum and psychopaths who love to frick people over and then charge them exorbitant fees for it. So I would approach them, ask if they did this, see what they say, go from there, or just let it go. Putting pebbles in the dust caps on their tires would work wonders. It lets the air out slow, so if you time it right, they'll have a flat while they are not at home, instead of just coming out to find flat tires. Repeat this. Most people will never know it is happening, because they never find the evidence. It usually falls out when the cap is removed and no one knows. I was told BBs are good for that. You are entering the neighbor war games. I was drafted when I was in my early teens in my neighborhood and reigned supreme in each battle. The battle of the cars was very much like your battle of the driveway. My battle plan at the time was this. My dad hunted on occasion and had a large bottle of skunk essence obtain 1. My grandmother was diabetic and gave herself shots daily with small syringes obtain 1. Hopefully they have a car they're proud enough of that this attack will carry some sting. My neighbor's was a new Mercedes. Sneak over at night and stick the syringe through the window weather strip and squirt the skunk essence all over the interior. Do not soak any one spot but sort of spray it all over so that they cannot detect one spot that contains the stench. Do this earlier in the dead of night instead of later, like 1 instead of 4, to allow a good soak and maybe even dry time. The odor is genuinely animal and they will likely not suspect human delivery. I've helped lots of folks in the last 25 years exact the same revenge, and in every case, it's ruled that an animal sprayed the vent area near the windshield. BTW, it cannot be removed. Understand this will total their vehicle unless they replace everything you spray: carpet, headliner, seats, jute padding, headliner backing. It's effing awful. Buy a $10 car. Buy a wheel clamp. Slash the tires. Park that mother across their driveway. Send them a pinata filled with blood. They're thinking fun times for the kids and instead they get a life-scarring event no one will ever get over. You want to play games? I got more games than Parker Brothers. Sign them up for an NAMBLA membership and request that all correspondence be sent to their work address. Now that is evil. Confront them. Then type up your story with address and pictures and put in mailbox of entire block so everyone knows they are butt clowns. Avoid putting things in mailboxes. The rules regarding those have severe penalties. Future post. Some butthole driver blocked us in. My daughter got sick and needed to go to the hospital, but we had to wait for the tow company to remove his dang car. Now he won't stop harassing us, slashing our tires, signing us up for magazines, etc. What should I do? Just let it go, man. You have no proof that they slashed your tires, and even if you did, you have to live near these people for a long time. Starting a war will cost you more in the long term, so go for a run. Play some video games, or whatever it takes to de-stress and forget it. Yet, whenever a vehicle is blocking a driveway in an emergency situation, the best thing to do is slash their tires so you're both fricked. OP, that's criminal damage. You'll be better off calling the police, and maybe start house hunting. 2. If they're prepared to slash your tires, that's kind of a huge red flag. The basis is the fact that the potential of a criminal charge is freaking terrifying for most of us. The plan: approach them by first apologizing and then asking if they happened to see anyone messing around with the car or if they were present when the towing service removed your vehicle. Mention that the reason you are asking is for a police report you have filed. Then ask if it would be alright if the investigating officer came around and asked them some questions. While watching them crap themselves over the potential of criminal charges, you politely apologize again and then leave them to stew over what they are going to do or say. Part 2. At this point you could do a few things. Either involve the police, probably a waste of time, wait patiently for a few months and frick with them, or just forget about it. I vote frick with them in a month or two. Good luck. Confront them and be extremely kind. Apologize for parking there etc. Ask if they happened to see anyone slash your tires. When they say no, mention how it's a shame these hooligans do this sort of thing. And say next thing you know someone's house may be set on fire, or may get shot or stabbed on the way home and never be caught for it, all while staring into their eyes without breaking contact. This will scare the crap out of them and put them in a fear mode for a while. Also, they may not frick with you again. Take a funnel, wedge it into the rubber gasket between the car window and the door. Pour the milk into the funnel, which will fill the inside of their door with milk. You don't want to pour too much into each door, because if it starts to drip out the bottom of the door they will know where the smell is coming from. If you use the correct amount, their car will smell like rancid milk after a few days in the heat, and they will never be able to locate the source. You can use other liquids, but I find that milk is just the easiest and quickest to get your hands on. I don't know how legal this is, but if you have a dog or a neighbor who does and you can get access to its poop, smear a little underneath their car door handle so when they go to open the door they get dog crap on their fingers. It is a very unpleasant way to start the day, but overall not too damaging to cause any lasting problems. If you want a more illegal and damaging way, a couple cups worth of sugar in their gas tank will ruin their car. It will caramelize in their engine and really frick it up. The good thing about this is it will take a few days for it to take effect, so it will be unlikely to lead back to you. Finally, bologna can strip paint off of cars, so you can attach a piece of bologna to the back of their car in any shape you want. A dong is the crowd favorite. If left long enough, when the bologna is peeled off they will have an image left permanently on the side. Sugar won't do crap to the engine. It might frick up the fuel filter, but that's a cheap and easy fix. Gas and sugar won't mix together. Introduce yourself and apologize for blocking them. If you haven't met them, there's a good chance that they had no idea it was your car, or they might have said something before they had it towed. There's also a good chance that someone else slashed the tires. No one wants the tension that comes along with hated neighbors, and you really don't need to escalate what might have just been a misunderstanding. Or, you could just ignore them entirely and cut every wire on the exterior of their house. Make them handle your butt pennies. Done. Take a friend and apologize for parking wrong and inform them about the broken tires. Surely they were intact when towed, right? Then sue the impound and make them testify in court that the tires were intact when you were towed. False testimony is a crime in my jurisdiction, so either the impound or they will get you new tires. Unless you can prove it, you should probably just walk away. Otherwise things could get uglier than just a couple of slashed tires. There is a gross video online of a dude slashing a tire in the blowout, breaking his arm, leaving the bone exposed. Get a copy of that, burn a DVD, write a letter and educate them on the potential risks of their behavior. This is what a good neighbor would do, and it may actually help you with your situation. How was your adult revenge on your childhood bully? After I finished high school, a girl who bullied me relentlessly for years messaged me on Facebook saying a bunch of awful things. Facebook was new at the time. We all added anyone we knew. I just screenshotted the messages and posted them to her wall. Then a bunch of her friends messaged me asking if I was okay. I got my revenge and didn't have to stoop to her level. That is genius. Only 3 of them that I really know of. My elementary school bully and I eventually became close friends, and we're still close, gaming together online despite the distance, and our significant others are close friends now as well. Another, a girl in high school who always treated me like crap. I ran into years afterwards at a coffee shop nightclub, weird combo thingy. I hear my name called out. Turned to find this living nightmare of my past and was surprised when she threw her arms around me and gave me a huge hug. We caught up for a while, and I asked her why she seemed so excited despite all we went through. She apologized and said that she was a bad person for never giving people a chance, and was glad that we seem to get along now. The third was a jock that had been pretty cruel through most of middle high school. One day, out of nowhere, he sits beside me in class during a project and starts asking me how I've been. He asks me if it hurt me when he'd call me names or push me around, and I was honest. Told him that of course it did. He was quiet for a while and then apologized for how he'd treated me. Said that it was wrong for him to bully others. A week later he shot himself in the head on the front lawn of his parents' house. Of all the things I've done or not done in my life, I will always regret not going to his funeral. At the time I was confused and scared and didn't know what to think, but it still doesn't sit right with me. So, really, no revenge here. We grew up and realized that life was way freaking scarier than anything we'd been through as kids. Not really on topic, I suppose, but something that I wanted to share. I appreciate you telling your story, and I'm pleased that you were mature enough to accept your bully's apologies. A kid that bullied me in high school. He actually gave me a black eye once and got suspended for it. Messaged me on Facebook apologizing for everything he did to me back then. I told him it's okay, you were just young and didn't know better. I eventually got a drink with him one day to see what he was up to and he broke down on me. Started talking to me about his alcohol problems and how he was self-destructive. He was getting kicked out of his mom's place and had no job. Me being the sap I am, offered him a job at the restaurant I was managing at the time. This was about 2 years ago. Fast forward to 3 months ago, he is now a kitchen manager at the same restaurant and he asks me if I'd like to get a drink with him. Dude bought me and my girlfriend a ticket to Colorado and told me he will never be able to pay me back for how much I helped him, but he is at least in the position where he can try. Colorado was fun. Got really high. This story made me smile equals. To be honest, this is strides better than the petty is now married to an ugly person lol stories. My best revenge was to just keep on being myself. This girl in high school would criticize me on everything, call me names and pick up fights with me for no reason. She eventually got kicked out of school. We met when we were in our early 20s. She started off nicely with the usual "how are you? What's been happening?" Turns out she hadn't even changed a little bit. "Oh yeah, want to be a teacher? You'll probably make a miserable one. I wouldn't send me kids to your school ever." That's when I realized that I was just so over her and her bullying and that there was just no hope for her to realize what she did was wrong. It gave me some sort of satisfaction. The best thing to do in that scenario is just to laugh in her face. I graduated from high school in the 80s. I had grown up poor, but when my mom remarried, she married a guy who did well for himself, so when we moved into his house, I was a poor kid suddenly going to a school full of rich kids. One of them in particular was a girl who was really stuck up and such a bee. She had a very imperious attitude and generous parents, while my mom, there was no way she was going to allow us to behave that way. About 6 years after high school graduation, I dropped out of college, was living on my own in a tiny apartment and working as a waitress. Of all people to show up at the restaurant and be seated in my section. I asked a couple of waitresses to take the table, but they were busy. Finally I realized what I would do. I would take on the role of my life. Win an Academy Award. I went to the table and pretended I'd never met her before in my life. She kept insisting I must remember her, right? She kept saying her name and I nailed the performance. "I'm so sorry, I just don't. No, I'm trying. I believe you. Yes, I went to that school, but I am so sorry. I don't remember you," and so on. She was flabbergasted. I kept overhearing her say to the people she was with, "I can't believe she doesn't remember me." That day I learned that to be forgotten is, for some, the ultimate slap in the face. Now that is good. I mean, you weren't rich and famous and couldn't throw these things in her face out of pettiness. You made it seem that all her negative energy she had thrown at you had not affected you in the least. Bravo. A kid that bullied me in high school ended up addicted to crack or not sure which. I saw him 10 years later as I was leaving a drive-thru and yelled his last name. He turned and I saw the scratch marks on his face and a big burn type gash in the middle of his lip. I asked him what had happened and he told me he got kicked out of his home. Instead of laughing at him or belittling him, I handed him the bag of food I just bought for myself as well as my cigarettes. He almost cried because according to him never in a million years would I have thought that after all the crap I put you through, that you'd help. I told him we were stupid kids and crap happens. I visited him once a week and just talked with him and kept telling him to get off the drugs. I moved away a short time after that so I didn't know what had happened to him. One day, I got a friend request from him on Facebook. He kicked the drug habit and was working as a barista for one of those corner coffee shops. He is now married and living a life worth living. At the end of the day, no matter how much grief he put me through, he was his own worst enemy and anything I could have done to him or said to him was nothing compared to what he did to himself. I'm glad he's better and living a better life. As satisfying as the other revenge stories were to read, this felt very uplifting and relieving to know there are people like you out there. Thank you for living in this world. Not my bully, but my best friends. Kinda kept in touch with the entire high school class through Facebook once it came out. This Ashat asks if he can use me as a reference because we got similar degrees and ended up in the second field. Adult him seems like a sham. It's all fake. My high school best friend moved to Europe because of this guy. He can't change that much. So I agree to meet him for drinks and see if he changed. 10 minutes into the meetup and he's telling me about cheating on his wife with girls right out of high school. So, of course, I said yes. Only had 3 calls I guess before he caught on. But I made sure I told the truth. I like this one. It's sneaky and clever. Not me, but my 9-year-old daughter has to deal with this girl in her class that is a bully to everyone. Though she is especially mean to my daughter. Luckily most of the time, the kids all have her back, and she theirs. The teachers are aware of her issues and try their best, but she's sneaky. My daughter is type 1 diabetic, and this girl likes to tease her. She does lots of things, but is really mean about it. She told her that her feet will get chopped off, due to beatus, and other horrible things. One day, she was waving a big chocolate chip cookie in her face, telling her how she can't eat stuff like that because she's a freak. My daughter had enough. She got up and slapped the girl across the face, and the cookie went flying too. She yelled, "Leave me alone." The whole lunchroom went silent. The girl ran to tell the teacher, and the kids cheered. She came home and told us because she felt badly about it. The girl told the teacher, crying of course, but several students also told the whole story. The teacher told my kid matter-of-factly, "Don't do that anymore," and yelled at the girl and made her stay in from recess. Since then, this girl gives my daughter a wide berth. I do not condone this behavior, but dang, it was hard to keep a straight face when we were telling her that it was the wrong way to resolve things. As a 43-year-old who was never bullied, I probably don't understand the mechanics, but to me your daughter's response seems the most natural and correct one. Some people, bullies, do not seem to understand the language of tolerance or love and can make life miserable in tiny doses until stopped dead in their tracks by a more direct method like a slap. Well, does revenge as a child count? When I was 11 there were 2 bullies who would mess with me all the time. They were a couple years older. This heavy-set kid named Frank and his taller and meaner friend. I forget his name. One day I was out riding my bike at a park. They had stopped me. One was holding up the front of my bike, while Frank was hitting me, trying to knock me off the bike. At that exact instant my brother, 6 feet 4 inches 220 lbs, was driving by. He quickly stopped the car and ran over. He picked both of them up by their shirt collars, one in each hand, holding them each about a foot off the ground. He said something like, "You mess with my brother again and I'll bash both your $% at percent heads together. Got it?" He dropped them both. They fell, then quickly got up and ran away. They never bothered me again. At that moment I felt that, yes, there is justice in the world. I forget his name. You win. I was bullied for a lot of things, primarily for being overweight and being nerdy. A lot of my bullies are now also fat, or have noticeably put on weight, while I've started losing. One of them is a drug addict. One was arrested on child pornography charges. One is in an ongoing custody battle and his ex's family are rather violent. Others just made bad moral choices. such as becoming a gold digger, drinking regularly, or just continuing to harbor ill feelings against me. I gave him decaf latte before he left to go to his high-powered wall saint exec job. Haha, he is going to be tired around 11. Nice. Not so much revenge, but I got an insane amount of satisfaction from seeing that they all lived up to the expectations set out for them to become single, unwed mothers by 24. I have Tourette syndrome and was bullied relentlessly in early grade school. One day in the winter I had had enough, so I threw a jagged block of ice at my bully's face, knocked some teeth out and he needed stitches. I almost got expelled. Worth it. I have not taken revenge at all. I have moved away and left it behind as much as I could. Now I just watch him waste his life from afar with a content smile and see how not having education is kicking his butt. He is losing friends and eventually will end up alone. And not that my life is so amazing, but I am doing better than him. I've never wished a man dead, but I have read some obituaries with great pleasure. Mark Twain. My bully hit on me at some bar years after he bullied me. I knew who he was immediately, but he had no idea who I was, so he kept going. Finally I asked, "Do you know who I am?" and he said no. I said, "I'm so and so, and you made my life a living heck in elementary school and I want an apology." His face dropped and he apologized profusely, said that he was a huge butthole in elementary school etc etc. Not gonna lie, it felt good. Oh man. This is almost exactly like my story, except I didn't demand an apology. I told him to go to heck, and flounced off like the hot piece of butt that I knew I was at that time. It felt amazing. I was pretty fat as a youngster, but people still found me attractive. This bothered my bully so much that anytime she could she would bully me about my weight. Oh, I love those genes. How do you find them in your size? Taking sneak pictures of me in class and putting them online, or forcing me to kiss another girl at her sleepover then telling everyone I was a lesbian. It was great. Fast forward 10 years, I'm starting a career I love, lost a substantial amount of weight and am living far away from my small town upbringing. I go home to visit my mother and who do I see walking around the grocery store? Hair thrown up in a ratty headband, extra 30 pounds on her hips and looking like a complete mess? I knew I could ruin her right there, but I didn't. I simply put a big smile on my face and said, "Wow, motherhood looks great on you." The fact that she had to trick someone into getting her pregnant after a drunken night at the local watering hole and now has 4 stepkids before 25 makes me realize that her bitterness and hateful attitude has served her more revenge than I ever could. I worked as a newscast director for my local TV station a few years back. Part of the job was making show graphics, maps, full screens, OTS, over the shoulders, etc. for each newscast, including for the local Crimestoppers segment. I prepped the mugshots of no less than 3 people who gave me crap in school for air during my tenure there. That always managed to put a smile on my face. Finally, an Ask Reddit question that sparks an immediate memory. When I was a child, my parents weren't rich, not impoverished, but definitely not people who could afford to throw money around. As a result, we spent probably 10 years worth of my childhood living in a mobile home park on the rough side of town. I remember one year we lived there. There were exactly 4 murders in the entire state. 2 of them were in my neighborhood. So in a neighborhood like this, of course, there are neighborhood bullies. One of them was named Isaiah, let's say. Over the course of a couple years, probably when I was around 13-14, he made my life heck. I couldn't go to the park playground for fear of Isaiah being around, so I spent a lot of time lonely, bored, and scared in my own house. If I'd known about Reddit at the time, I probably would have spent a crap ton of time on it. Fast forward dang near a decade, I've been a correctional officer at the state prison for a few years, doing very well for myself, own a couple cars, bought my first house, and life is good. Isaiah hasn't even crossed my mind since I was a kid. However, one particular day at work, they were short-staffed, so they threw me into segregation, aka the hole, where bad inmates go to be punished, where I don't normally work. I go do a walk around to check all the cells, and lo and behold, I see a familiar face in one of the cells. I check his inmate ID and sure enough, it's this piece of crap from my neighborhood when I was a kid. I smiled and kept walking. beat him up then slept with his wife while he watched. Just kidding. He's doing well and my life is a horrible piece of crap. There was a guy who was popular but also a bully at my high school. I ran into him at a bar about 15 years after. He was super cool and the nicest guy ever. I was talking with his wife and I mentioned the bully thing and she said everyone she meets from his high school tells her that story. He even acknowledged it and apologized. Apparently he was going through a very rough time in high school and he had since learned a lot and life had calmed way down. It made me feel really good about not holding on to things like that. Moving away from the rather depressing town and making a relative success of my life. Suck it, kid who hasn't thought about me for 20 years. I didn't. The universe did. It wasn't exactly protracted enough or abusive enough to be called bullying. But when I was 11, I had a friend I went around with and she tried to introduce me to her larger circle of friends. This one girl who was basically the alpha female would not stop ripping on me for not being cool enough. She threw fits about how freaking uncool I was because I went to drama class instead of other, cooler hobbies. She went on and on about how I was uncool because I didn't go to the same cafe they went to. Fast forward a few years, she ended up a teenage mother. LOL. They got a huge full back tattoo, the ugliest tattoo I have ever seen. I saved the JPEG on my desktop and named it Revenge and I look at it occasionally if I get sad. I like this one. It's not bullying your bully and they did it to themselves. You're just reaping the reward of their bad decision making. I was heavily bullied in middle school, and one time I actually ended up getting my kneecap and surrounding muscles semi-permanently damaged from a pee-poor game of kickball. He couldn't hit me in the head with the ball like he wanted to, so he tripped me by a base instead. The following year, he tried to sexually attack me in school and got suspended for the rest of the year. Now, he's only 20, in prison for probably 20-30 plus years for rape, arson, and theft, and has had I believe 2 children. His now ex made a post on Facebook that members from the prison managed to tattoo rapist across his face. My revenge was done for me. Bittersweet. So I have a friend who sometimes catches up with my high school bully and gets his new number. My friend gives me his number and then I spend the afternoon signing him up for gay dating sites and some weird Craigslist crap. I'm told he has had to change numbers about 20-30 times in the last 3 years. That's more like it. The girl who was cruel to me at every opportunity, her husband cheated on her and they're divorced. Ordinarily I'd feel badly for someone in this situation, but she was so unbelievably nasty, it just makes me laugh. A few of my childhood bullies have passed away to reckless driving or drugs, so revenge not needed. After going to a different high school than my middle school bully, I was a year out of HS and going for a bike ride. Saw the middle school bully on his bike, going the opposite way. He yelled something to be a prick to me, so I ignored and kept on my merry way for about a mile, until I noticed he was following me, fast. I wasn't the same pushover I was in middle school, so I pulled over and waited, as he hopped off his bike and violently thrust his hand out to shake my hand and apologize for ever being a dong. Basically said he used to hang with a bad crowd through middle school until senior year and he regretted a lot of stuff he did as a kid growing up. Asked me how my high school years were, what my after HS plans were and explained after his father passed away he had an epiphany he was going to the National Guard to get away to help fund college, and wanted to become a psychologist to help kids throughout high school deal with harassment. I talked with him for a good half hour and we parted on friendly terms, ran into him a few times over the years and about 4 years later he seems to be on his way to achieving what he said and is very active in my hometown community. Didn't need to get revenge. Glad to see someone grow up and make something great of themselves. There was a popular boy in middle school who was a total douche to awkward, nerdy me. He'd call me names, talk to people within earshot of me about how ugly I was, and would try to physically hurt me during our PE class all the time. We went to the same high school, but I had no classes with him, so I pretty much forgot about him. Well, a couple years after high school I ran into him at a bar. I'm a lot prettier and less awkward than I once was. He hadn't grown more than a couple inches since middle school, and the face that was cute when he was 12 did not handle the testosterone surge of puberty well. He was acting like a nervous teenager and kept saying wow, You really look different," while we chatted a little. He would also not shut up about how he was in the Navy and how awesome he was because he was serving our country and protecting me from terrorists. He finally asked me for my number and I gave it to him. He texted me the next day asking me on a date and I replied LOL. Nah, it wasn't my most shining moment of maturity, but it felt good to look down on that little bastard both literally and figuratively. Okay, most of these are petty and mean, but this one's just plain hilarious. Go you. I never really got revenge but worked my ass off at uni and ended up working on movies. Got married, had a kid and have my own house, so that was revenge enough that he didn't dictate my life. I then found out that he was a school counselor for unruly children and thought to myself, he's turned his life around. Good for him. It's like Suicide Squad. Bad guys doing good things because they know how to do bad things. Only starring Matt Damon and worth a $12 movie ticket. Not really a bully, but my turd scum of an ex-girlfriend. She broke up with me after coming back from a trip and telling me at school the next day she cheated on me with some random dude she met online. We're both 21 plus now, and she's got a 3-year-old kid and still lives with her mother. Last month, I was at a Kroger buying flowers for my current GF. She's freaking amazing BTW, and turd scum is with her non-baby daddy boyfriend. Dude looks at me walking down the aisle with a nice bouquet of flowers and says, "Hey, maybe I should buy you some flowers like that guy is doing for his girl." The look of utter shock and disdain on her face was freaking priceless. Walked by her with the biggest smirk on my face. Best part was I was all fancied up cause I was about to surprise my GF with a date night. So I'm dressed in a polo and slacks, and turd crap's chimney choker has his pants around his thighs and looks like he hadn't bathed in a week. So satisfying. This moment was made for you. Holy crap. That sounds so satisfying. I was about 10 when this neighborhood butthole tortured me. The final straw was when he took a down power line and whipped me in the back with it while I skated by him rollerblading. He left welts and it hurt for days. About a week later I biked to his house knowing his parents were at work still. So it was just him and his sister home. He had an archery set up in his backyard and I took his bow and arrows. I waited behind a tree until he got outside and shot that little mother with his own crap right in his chest and then went for his face. While he was doubled over I kicked him and spit on him and told him if he ever came near me again I'd kill him. And I meant it. With every fiber of my 10-year-old being. After the day I knew what I was capable of and was never afraid of anyone again. His parents came to my house and talked to my grandpa who knew what was going on and held it down for me. I didn't get in trouble for it. As an adult I obviously handle conflicts differently, but that is my best bully revenge story. He took a down power line and whipped me in the back. I hear he's now grown up and moved on to jumper cables. Karma eventually got them. One died of brain cancer. A car accident got 4 of them at once a couple years after graduation. 3 died, the other lost his legs, and the teacher who I hated got arrested a couple years later for fricking a student. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.
Bye for now.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to